Hey everyone, I'm excited to share with you the story of Jamie Jackson. Jamie shares the importance of mentors, not giving up, understanding how to handle a no, and the endurance it takes to be successful. If you're ready to join us, I'm ready to jump in. Let's start.
Welcome to the Millennial Leader Podcast with Carlos Reyes, encouraging and equipping a generation to lead.
I'm excited today to have a good friend with me, Jamie Jackson. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thanks so much, Carlos, for having me.
Absolutely. I consider you a good friend. It was fun to hang out with you actually Saturday night and get to know Theon, and I hope to have Theon on the show in the future. But you are a professional, and I would love for you to tell everybody your backstory and how you started. We were kind of joking before we started recording, right, that you've been doing this type of thing for a long time. So go ahead. Give us, I believe it. Give us your backstory because you started doing all this at 16, am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. 15, actually. 15. When I was in high school, I had a huge desire to be a television journalist and did everything I could to get any particular kind of newsroom experience. So I started out in my hometown and called every TV station, and every TV station told me, no, you cannot come in. We cannot do a tour with you. No, it's not going to happen. So I was in boarding school at the time in Pittsburgh, and I tried the TV stations in Pittsburgh. And one news director at WPXI, the NBC affiliate in Pittsburgh, allowed me the opportunity of a lifetime and introduced me to one of his reporters who to this day is still a good close mentor and friend. And at 15 years old, I became a reporter trainee. And that news director, Pat Madej, is now a consultant with Maggot Consulting, TV consulting. But he saw my passion and decided to take a chance on this teenage 15-year-old young man who really needed a lot of help and gave me such a great foundation for me to start my career. And that led to more TV jobs. It led to further experience. It allowed me to really broaden my horizons and figure out what direction I wanted to take my life and my career in.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I love the mentality at 15 years old that just because you've got a bunch of no's, the road doesn't stop there. You kept pushing till you found a yes. What drove you? I mean, that's unusual for somebody at that age.
It's very unusual. What drove me was, I think, just being told no. All I wanted at the time was a chance to visit a newsroom and just take a tour. And I never realized that, something small like that, a small desire could lead to more. And wanting to learn everything I could about television news, about journalism, about how to be good at it, it drove me to want to do more. When I was 16 years old, I started writing for a major newspaper in Pittsburgh and wrote my own column. And in that column, gave advice to other teens about following your dreams and how to be successful in life. And, I felt like I didn't really know that much. Looking back on it, I didn't really know enough to really tell other teens what they should be doing with their life. But the opportunity was had. And it, again, gave me a great experience. I did that all the way through high school, even into college, having a real job and having my name in print. So what drove me was a desire to succeed. And that's something that, Carlos, you played sports. You understand competition. You understand how success works. And yes, you're told no. Yes, you face failure after failure. But one thing that I've learned, especially in life at this age, is that when we come along in life, on the road of life, and we hit stop signs, we tend to get frustrated. But just like the rules of the road, do your 3-second count and continue going forward. And we have to do that, even when we fail, even when we're told no. Take a deep breath and move forward.
Yeah, that's a good word. I can certainly appreciate that. I'm so fascinated that you understood this at such a young age. For me, just at 27, like I'm beginning to really understand that. Interestingly enough, my father, who's been an attorney for a while, and our family is, of course, from Cuba, he would say that when he was trying to get into law school somewhere, that he heard so many no's. That's where he learned to develop a thicker skin. Would you say that served you in that same manner now, having understood all those no's at 15, 16, and ultimately knowing when you hear a no today, is it no big deal?
No, it's still a big deal. It's still a big deal. I think what allowed me to continue to move forward was the fact that I just didn't want to give up so easily. I didn't want to seem as though I was not going to succeed or allow myself the opportunity to follow my dream. And I think what kept me going was the fact that, it's what I really deeply wanted, and I really wanted to do it. And I would say that was my biggest motivation. Honestly, I was at the point where, one more no, and I probably would have said, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. I was getting to that point, but, I thank the Lord that yes finally did come. And that's the thing. The yes does eventually come. And it's that first initial yes that will give you the motivation, that will give you the energy, that will kind of light the fire for you to continue to move forward. It's like your initial fuel. Now you'll have to recharge and refuel along the way. But, that was the thing for me when I was younger, just making sure I kept going and kept moving forward. And, when you have a dream and you have a goal, don't stop until you reach that goal. Don't stop until you follow that dream and accomplish that dream.
Wise words, good words. So you've done this now. You're at 15. You're writing a column throughout high school. You've entered college now. Kind of walk us where you're headed from there.
Well, when I was 19 years old, I became a news reporter at an ABC station in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and did that through college, and ended up graduating a semester early because I had accepted a job in Ohio. Because of that, literally graduated on Saturday and started working on Monday. And so that was a great experience. Then moved back home to Virginia, ended up working at TBN, working with the 700 Club, working at CBN, and after that, accepting a job in Indiana, and then working in Indiana, and then returning to the Virginia area, to Washington, D.C., to continue working. So having the opportunity to work radio, television, I've worked for every affiliate, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and even PBS, believe it or not. And again, having that drive and that want to follow my dreams. And, eventually, as you know, Carlos, when you get in the working world, you end up having bills you have to pay. So
yes,
that my job was enjoyable, especially the fact that I had to make money to pay my bills.
That is a strong drive, is it not?
Absolutely.
At some point, you gotta make something happen. I love, though, your story. I think something that would be fascinating to focus on is your drive. At a young age, you understood that the dream was, and correct me if I'm wrong, an anchor position?
Yeah, at that time it was, yeah.
And so you were able to identify that as your goal. Have that written down somewhere? Was that something that you focused on, or is that just sort of an internal goal that you were going to keep pushing towards you met till you actually met that goal?
Well, I will tell you, when I was a little boy, I used to make microphones out of everything, and I would report the news to the Mirror. If we were driving in the car and drove past an emergency crew, I would make up a news story as we were driving past. One of my favorite photos here in my home is a photo of myself and my grandmother, and I had made a microphone out of paper. And so it was something that at such a young age, I wanted to be on television. I wanted to be a news anchor. I wanted to be a reporter. Every TV person I met as a child, I told them I want to be on TV. So it was something that started very, very young. In fact, with my stuffed animals as a child, I did two things. I would preach to them, and I would have church with my stuffed animals, and I would also use my stuffed animals as my co-news anchors for my imaginary news. So it was something that started very, very young, and I think it's very important for us not to forget those young dreams that we have, not to forget the goals that we wanted to do even as children. And I think especially for parents, it's important for parents to foster that. I was blessed enough to have a family, to have parents, to have people around me that wanted to help me accomplish that goal, accomplish that dream, and who fostered that talent that was inside of me.
They obviously did a good job. From that time in your life, you're an anchor in Indiana, and you're on the news. And take us from there. What happened next?
Well, I reached the point where I had honestly done everything I've wanted to do. In fact, prior to moving to Indiana to accept that position, I pretty much retired from local news, believe it or not. I had felt that I had done what I've wanted to do. I was an anchor. I had worked at several TV stations by that time. I had started my own multimedia company. I was working for TBN part-time. And so I was pretty content. But while I was on a missions trip in Honduras, I received an email from a news director in Indiana who randomly saw me on YouTube and said, "Hey, we've got an anchor position. Would you be interested?" And I accepted it and moved to Indiana in about a week's time. So really loved my time in Indiana, really enjoyed having the opportunity to help people start their day as a morning anchor and help them, continue their day as a noon anchor as well. And having the opportunity to really be involved in the community and to really try to make a difference and to try to serve. Serving is very, very important to me. So was able to do all those things, but realized in the course of doing all that I wanted to do more. I didn't just want to just sit and read the news my entire life. I wanted to do more to help serve. And I wanted to do it on a daily basis, even outside of the missions work that I do in Central America. I wanted to do more. And so that's when I thought about transitioning out of local news yet again. So that would be retirement number 2 and move forward to something new. And to be honest, Carlos, I had reached a level of frustration because I wanted to do more. I wanted to serve more, but I didn't know quite how to make that happen. And I had actually got pretty down on myself. I didn't see myself as a successful award-winning news anchor. I felt that I hadn't accomplished very much and that, I wanted to do more. So had a low point and, as a Christian and as a believer, found my strength in the Lord and encouraged myself just as David had to and picked myself up and said, all right, well, you had your moment, you had your low moment. Yeah, we get it. You feel bad because you're not doing what you want to do in your career. You got to do something about it. And so that's when I made the big decision to move to Washington.
Yeah, and I think that's where our relationship certainly picks up. I think that's a great point that you make.
Really, Matt?
Well, that's a funny story, which we can get to another time. But I do want to back up to, I think that's amazing because it's real, and I really appreciate you being open and honest that we start in one arena of life, and perhaps we feel like, in your case, you had done everything you wanted to in that career. Actually, 2 retirements by 25?
Yeah.
Is that right? That's awesome. You don't hear that too often. I think that's really something pivotal that we should touch on, is that there are times in our life where it's okay. Things aren't going well, and to admit, life is hard, but what's next, and not just sticking around to do it. And I love your attitude about it, and that, okay, let's find sort of what the next thing is. this next part of your story I love. I think it's amazing. But you left your job in Indiana with no job in Washington D.C., moved out here. Tell me a little bit about that. There is some risk in that. Tell us, are you a risky person? What led to all that, and how did you find the courage to come out here and do that?
I am so not a risk person. Although, based on the fact that I owned a motorcycle and that I moved to Washington without a plan, well, no, I had a plan. I moved on faith. It's pretty risky, but I don't consider myself a risky person. But I think my situation drove me to the point of wanting to do more, of wanting to step outside of the comfort zone. And so I packed up everything, moved to Washington, and didn't have a job. So ended up, I was supposed to do an internship with a particular congressional office. It didn't quite happen. So I was in Washington for almost 2 weeks at that point and hadn't really had anything, didn't have a job, didn't even have an internship, but knew that I wanted to move to the next level of my career. So I eventually, through a good friend, I was able to get an internship with an office, and I did that for 2.5 weeks. 2 weeks seems to be a interesting timeline for me, but 2.5 weeks later, I found myself working as a press secretary in a congressional office.
Do you want to share with us why the 2 weeks is a special number?
Just because I was here for 2 weeks before I actually started an internship, and then 2 weeks into that internship, I got a job. So I was nervous and savings and everything else, but in the end, you still get nervous when you don't have a job and you don't have substantial income coming in. You get a little nervous. So, in the big picture, everything kind of happened fast, but it still was rather odd to me considering that, I didn't have a job, that I came here leaving a successful career, leaving a well-paying career, and stepping out on faith, and again, wanting to accomplish something different with my life, wanting to grow forward. And so it took a lot of guts, yes. And looking back on it, yeah, it really did take a lot of guts. And I didn't know how it was going to work out, but I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't exchange anything in the world for that experience, because I needed that experience to grow in faith and to grow in self-esteem, so to speak, to know that you have the tools, you have the talent, you have to do the work.
I think that's a great word. I imagine that it was part of that confidence that helped move you out to Washington, D.C. Am I right?
Yeah, but one thing about Washington, it'll humble you pretty quickly. So I got here, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to get a job. All these people are like miles ahead of me. But I didn't give up, and that was the big thing, because it would have been easy to give up and accept a TV job and repeat the cycle that I was unhappy with. But I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up that last point. Can you speak a little bit to that? Many of us, you hear horror stories at least, and perhaps it's not completely the millennial generation just because we haven't been around as long, but that find themselves in a job that they just hate, if you will. Can you talk about a little bit of that? Go find something else. Do something else. If you're unhappy with what you're doing, make something happen. You clearly did that with your job. Do you have any wisdom for that?
I would say the biggest thing is to understand, and I don't want to underestimate the difficulty of wanting to follow your dream and wanting to move out of your rut. I would say the biggest thing is don't give up. It's hard. I will be the first to tell you it is extremely hard. It is extremely challenging, and you really learn a lot about yourself in that process. You really learn endurance, and I think that what I don't hear a lot of in people talking to our generation is endurance. I think that a lot of people think millennials just give up easily, but we are a we are a generation that was told we were special by Mr. Rogers. We were told we can accomplish anything we want to, and I grew up a big fan of Mr. Rogers, and he told me I was special and I could do anything I wanted to do, so I believed it. I really did believe it. And I think we cannot forget that. We are special, we are unique, and we can accomplish anything, but we have to be willing to go through the difficult times. We have to be able to go through the wilderness in order to reach our promised land. And we cannot give up just because things get difficult or we may not know what the outcome's going to be. You do have to take that risk. You do have to be brave, and you have to step out into the unknown.
I couldn't agree with you more. There is an endurance aspect. You know, many of us want the CEO position without putting in the work ahead of time. Like the figuring out the direction, setting the goals, and understand what it takes to make sure that we're equipped to do those things. And I love it when you use a good biblical illustration. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, for me, especially as an African American man in this country, it was a situation that I wanted to succeed, not just for myself, but for other people in my culture. I wanted to try to succeed and try to do something so that the generation that comes behind me won't have an excuse for not being successful and not being able to accomplish their own dreams. And I think it's very important that our young people, because now we're the older folks, it's important that young people get that, especially the young minorities, the young Latino and the young African American children have to understand that you can accomplish things. There's no more excuses for not being able to get a good education, for not being able to follow your dream, for not being successful. There are no more excuses. You have to be willing to do the work. And hard work is rewarded in America. I know that's super cliche. And as a journalist, I hate cliches, but it's true. You can accomplish great things in America if you're willing to do the hard work.
I think you nailed exactly on the head. What I'm trying to accomplish through this website and this podcast is I want this generation to be equipped and encouraged through stories like yours. There is such great, if one millennial walks out of here figuring out that, hey, I've got to develop the endurance to achieve my dreams, this conversation here will have been worth it. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Absolutely. To go from intern to press secretary to communications director in just a short amount of time, took a lot of guts. It really did. At 15 years old, being able to accept no, you have to move on. As a young writer, there was a lot of situations that I encountered that pretty much I could have given up. There were a lot of newspapers who said, well, we're not going to print your newspaper column. I could have given up then. When you hit those stop signs, you have to keep going. They're stop signs. They're not walls. You have to keep going. You have to keep moving forward. And you have to find that strength within yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. I had a mentor, Mr. Chris Moore, who works at the PBS station in Pittsburgh. He used to say, nobody in this world loves you except your mama, and she might be lying to you. You have to understand and realize that in the end, we have to find that strength within ourselves. No one in this world, people are not guaranteed to give us anything, and they're not guaranteed to help us succeed. So there's a lot of strength within ourselves. Again, not to sound all Sesame Street Mr. Rogers, but we're special, we're unique, and we have talents and abilities that no one else has. It's about putting the hand to the plow and making sure you do what it takes to allow yourself to succeed.
I appreciate you touching on the mentor subject. You know I'm a big believer in finding mentors. Many people always follow up with, well, what if they say no? Well, so what if they say no? Identify another person that you look up to that has lived, that is engaged in your industry, has experienced many of the things you have, and listen, learn. Tell me, why did you seek out mentors? When did that start?
It started with Pat Madej at WPXI in Pittsburgh, who introduced me to a reporter there at the time, Kimberly Easton. And both Pat and Kimberly both took the time with me. They taught me how to become a strong writer. They taught me the difference between being a reporter and being a good reporter. You know, one of the small things that I have some pride about is the fact that when people introduce me, they say award-winning journalist. There's a difference between award-winning and just journalist. And I knew that I didn't want to just be a reporter. I wanted to be a good reporter. I wanted to be one that made a difference, that helped change people's lives. So they instilled that in me. People like Chris Moore at the PBS station in Pittsburgh taught me the importance of going beyond what society and what culture may say a black man can accomplish, and telling me that you can do more than that. You can be stronger than that. Don't allow other people to speak into your lives. In fact, I'll share a tidbit. Stedman Graham, who's the Mr. Oprah Winfrey in Oprah Winfrey's life, I did an interview with him for my newspaper column years ago. And one of the most profound things he said to me was, he said, Jamie, if you take anything away from this conversation, it's that if you don't define yourself, the world will define you for you. And so I've always worked to define myself and not let others define who I am. So I even count Stedman as one of my great mentors. Folks like Anthony Bass, who used to play for the Minnesota Vikings and was my youth pastor growing up here in Virginia, to this day is one of my closest friends and mentors. Folks like Jim Forbes, who, when I worked in West Virginia at the competing TV station to his, Jim Forbes is a legend in West Virginia for being a news anchor. He became a close friend and mentor to me. So even the folks at your competition can be great people to help you move forward. And even as a reporter, there were lots of older reporters who would help us along the way. When I worked in West Virginia, folks like D.K. Wright, she's a reporter that's been at her station for about 35 years, but she would help us younger reporters. She would tell us on the scene who to talk to or what not to do, how to conduct ourselves in court. She didn't have to do that. We were the competition, but she did that. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for great people speaking into my life and guiding me. Folks like my good friend Pastor Marty in Minnesota. I can go on and on with all the mentors and great people in my life. People like Dr. George Roller. I mean, there's so many great people that have come along my path that have helped me. Folks like you, Carlos. I mean, Carlos, you're a great mentor to me. I think that we have to understand as millennials, we don't have all the answers, and we have to surround ourselves with people who are going to help us go to the next level. And it's true. Association brings simulation. So whoever you're surrounded by, that's how you're going to start to act. You're going to start to assimilate to how they act and what they do and how they talk and what they say. So you have to make sure you surround yourself with good people, having good positive friends. In my belief, having good Christian friends, having people who are doing what you want to do, and making sure that you constantly surround yourself with people who are doing successful things, who are moving to levels that you want to go. I can't tell you how many of my friends have doctors in front of their names, because that's something I would like to see one day. I'm not going to do it anytime soon, but I love that. I have friends that are my age or maybe a little older than me who are doctors already in their respective fields. So I think it's very, very, very important to consciously surround yourself with people who are going to help you go to the next level.
I couldn't have said that any better. I think that's why we're such close friends, is because we, I think, share the same views on mentorship. Tell us just practically, how do we go about identifying a mentor, and then is there an ask involved?
There's absolutely an ask involved. You know, when I came here to Washington, I really did not know what I was doing. I can admit that now. I already have my job. I didn't know what I was doing, and moving from one area, journalism, television journalism, broadcast journalism, into politics, that was a not easy transition. And so I sought out people who could help me not only on the personal level, because Washington is full of politics and people and egos and all that stuff that you have to kind of maneuver through, and you need people who encourage you. So, again, I'll mention you. I'll mention Dr. George Roller. I have a good friend, my buddy DJ is a communications director for Small Business Committee, and he is a great mentor who I asked and said, hey, I need you to be my accountability partner. I need you to be my mentor in maneuvering what I do. I wanted to make sure that I was involved with people who were successful, who had accomplished great things in their own lives because they had the answers. I've learned at this age it's so much easier for somebody to tell you the stove is hot than to go and touch yourself and learn that the stove is hot.
Amen to that. For those of us that have had to touch the stove in many instances, it's much easier. I'm sure there's many out there that can relate to that. Well, Jamie, I really appreciate you coming on, spending some time with me. One of the things I love to do towards the end is kind of ask folks, is there a resource, Jamie, that you have turned to? Is there something that has helped you continue to develop? I mean, mentorship has clearly played a huge role in your life. Are there any resources, whether it's videos or books or folks directly that people can begin to read about or learn about that you would direct them towards?
I would say there's a lot of great resources, but I would say the best resources that I have encountered are ones that deal with servant leadership. I would say for me, it's anything written by John Maxwell, because it teaches you that leadership is more than just telling people what to do. It is about serving others. And I have to tell you, learning about servant leadership has really been tremendous to me in my current position, especially when you manage people and you supervise people. It's important to know that you are there to serve them. I would say folks like Dr. Joseph Umidi, he has a great website called lifeformingcoach.com. And it's a leadership coaching resource website where through the website they teach you and train you on how to be a leader and how to be a coach for other people. So lifeformingcoach.com, Dr. Joseph Umidi, who is a personal friend and mentor, really made a big difference for me. And finally, my last resource is Dr. Bobby Hill, and his website is vanguardministries.com. A phenomenal leader when it comes to leadership training and when it comes to helping people to receive the tools they need to be the best leaders they can be, whether it be professionally, whether it be in their church. And I'm sorry, that's vanguardministries.org, VANGUARD ministries.org. So really great, phenomenal people, really great, phenomenal resources and websites.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. How do we keep in touch with you, or how can people, if they want to follow you, how can they go about doing that?
You can check me out on Facebook. It's really easy to find me. www.facebook.com/globaljamie, JAMIE.
Awesome. Nice. That's pretty good. You got that down. I'm not even sure what my my Facebook one is, but Jamie, really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you for the encouragement. thank you for reminding us that mentors can really shape and play a big role in our lives, as well as pursuing our passion and learning how to respond and deal with a no. So again, thank you, Jamie, and we'll definitely be chatting soon.
Absolutely. And thank you, Carlos, for what you're doing through this website for millennial leaders and for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon. Bye, Jamie.
Bye-bye.